Promote a culture of inclusion, supercharge your communication, and unleash the full potential of your teams and leaders with the Inclusive Handbook collection from the Diversity Movement. As part of the collection, I wrote the Inclusive Leadership Handbook with Kurt Merriweather to empower leaders with tools needed to cultivate a culture that fosters creativity, innovation, and employee engagement. Through strategies, exercises, and self-reflection, leaders at all levels can enhance their effectiveness. Learn more at thediversitymovement.com/store. Use code HOL at checkout for 25% of your first order. Welcome to High-Octane Leadership with Donald Thompson. This season, we're diving deeper with more solo episodes, where I'll share the experiences that have led to recognition by EY, Forbes, Fast Company, and others. Not as a boast, but as milestones on my entrepreneurial path. From growing multimillion-dollar firms to successful business exits and building high-performance teams with a global perspective. I'll reveal the insights and strategies from my journey and share them with you so that we can win together. Alongside these solo episodes, we'll have industry visionaries and thought leaders, and we'll explore effective leadership. Ready to empower your leadership journey with real success stories? Let's embark on this transformational journey together.
The goal of the Knee Speaker Series is to bring regional leaders to inspire and motivate you throughout your MBA. And it's something you offer one week each semester. So hopefully you're going to get a diverse array of speakers throughout your MBA program. Speaking of diversity, we have an amazing leader here, Donald Thompson, who is going to present to you tonight. So turn it over.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for the trust, clapping in advance. So that's good. So I owe you a good, fun presentation, and that's what I hope we'll deliver. What I'll do, I have some slides, but I'll intersperse that with just some stories and some background. Certainly school and education is about learning and critical thinking and the things that you want to become. One of the things that I did well, I'll talk to you tonight about things that I didn't do so well and learn from, but one of the things that I did well is gaining knowledge, insight, and really actionable coaching from a lot of folks along the way. And so as we talk, I did a similar conversation maybe 2 years ago with a similar group over at NC State, and we talked about cheat codes. And so I'll give you a couple cheat codes along the way that they may not necessarily talk about in school, but they can help you kind of jump the ladder of knowledge and innovation and progress. A little bit about background. I'm going to talk about some things I've done, but I want you all to trust me that I'm not doing it for my ego gratification, although I do have a good, healthy ego, so transparency matters. But I'm doing it because everyone that I talk with, I want to give you the foundation of why you should listen to me. I don't want to assume just because I was invited. I don't want to assume just because you're here as a part of your education in class that I'm the one you're going to get guidance from. But hopefully after I tell you a little bit about my background, it'll give you some perspective on not just why you should listen to me, but you should listen because of the experiences that I've had and the connections and learnings that have helped me succeed along the way. So one, I'm currently the CEO and co-founder of the Diversity Movement. And so we founded the Diversity Movement we launched the company in 2000, really 2019, but formally incorporated in 2000 right during the pandemic. And so if you want to know a great time to launch a new business, that's not it, right? I can kind of help you with that. But the dream, the goal, the ferocity of our vision for basically creating a better workplace for all, right? A lot of businesses have missions that are complicated and fundamentally a little bit hard to interpret unless you're a part of the business. Ours is very simple, right? We saw an opportunity to think about diversity, equity, inclusion in alignment with business objectives, right? Our business was not built, although it had a catalyst in some of the social justice things that were going on and still continue to go on in our country. Our business was focused on how to create employee engagement so that organizations could be more productive. Organizations are more productive if you have psychological safety, if you feel comfortable talking to your senior leaders about what's working, what's not working, and where you need help. Organizations are stronger where people are paid based on their effort, not based on their pedigree, not based on their gender or ethnicity. We felt like mentoring and sponsorship in many organizations was geared towards people that look the same, went to the same school, and that does not help productivity. So we are very big on fairness, but in order to speak the language of leadership, you have to talk about fairness in financial terms. You have to talk about equity in terms of economic terms. And we can argue and debate of whether or not that's right or not. But one of the things I'm going to talk to you about today is a lot of us have debates on what's right and wrong, but the language of leadership is what's profitable. And that's a business reality that we all have to think through as we're determining what organizations to shop with and spend our money with, what organizations to support with our time, effort, and energy as team members and employees, and then what organizations we want to grow and thrive in and move up the ladder, or in my case, what kind of businesses do I want to build as an entrepreneur? And so those are some of the things that kind of underpin that. Outside of the diversity movement, I founded a handful of technology businesses and exited them. I guess people use the term serial entrepreneur. I like to build and then transition, right? And so 10, 15 years ago, you would have known me in the software and the technology space, working with clients like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, building computer-aided design technology that helped large-scale manufacturers like John Deere, for example, work with their digital supply chain across the globe and the most important asset that they have, which is their intellectual property, knowledge, and data, and helping that knowledge and data be transferred safely between systems. If you think about any of us that have flown in an airplane and we go on the jetway bridge between the ticket, where you check in and the plane, well, our little company that I worked for, Integrated Industrial Information, we went by iCubed. Our software, a little software called CAD built those jetway bridges for a company called FMC. Our software was used by Canadian Pacific Rail. And one of the things that my mentor, Grant, did, and the reason I'm talking to you about kind of my career way back, is my mentor, Grant, did something very, very smart early in my sales career, is he let me know that what I was selling, which is data migration services between systems, which was technology that helped people in manufacturing build the right product at the right time, was important, was meaningful. And I remember we were talking about Canadian Pacific Rail in particular, and the technology we were providing to them and the data migration services said, Donald, if our technology is incorrect, people could get hurt because they're using our technology to map out the train tracks for their rail system for the entire country. So when you're quoting a customer, when you're understanding and discovering what they need, when you're listening to their concerns, you were a part of a decision-making process that could impact the way people do business in a country. That made me feel proud of what I was doing and what I was selling. I was not just in the software business, right? And so one of the things that you want to do as an entrepreneur, and one of the cheat codes, is how do you connect what you do to the betterment of the people that you serve and sell to? Not just what you do, how to get promoted, not just what you do so you have a nice salary, but what do you do so that the organization you're a part of is a part of the fabric of serving its clients in a meaningful, measurable, and yes, a monetizable way. Because Grant naturally taught me that, I had a different sense of pride about the work that I was doing. And so I saw real time early in my career, what leaders do is they connect the work their teams are doing to the outcomes in the business, but also the outcomes of people that are using those tools. So anyway, in the technology business, I did that for a little bit, and the company that I worked for was sold to Adobe Systems, and they wanted that technology. Adobe is a big global software company, and I knew them as the PDF folks, but they do so much more than that. They're in the Adobe Marketing Cloud, digital data migration, all kinds of different things that they do. But here's the twist. They didn't want the deep technology in the division I was working on. They wanted a certain amount of what we call digital rights management. I won't go into all of those technical terms, but they wanted a certain part of the business. And so at that time, Grant Willard had the opportunity to sell the part of the business that Adobe didn't want. And so I led an employee buyout of that remaining part of the business. I was 36 years old, had been working with Grant as a mentor for over a decade. And I remember sitting at a pizza shop and Grant saying, hey, would you be interested in buying the other part of the business? And I said, Grant, I'd love to. I said, couple problems. I don't have any money. And that problem is multiplied by the fact that you want millions of dollars and I don't have any money. Right? And I don't have any wealthy friends, and I don't have any investors. And so if you're going to give it to me, I'm your guy. Right? And so what we did, which was amazing, there's people in your life that will open doors for you. You need to run through them, and when you're through that door, you need to produce. But there are people that will open doors for you. And so what we did was he created and held a 3-year note, and we paid him back based on profit, and then we fully owned the business. And we did that in 3 years. And we took that business and 16 people on the team, and we grew that business from 16 people to 140 people. And then we exited that business to a firm out of Pune. That firm out of Pune, very similar, because big companies want what they want. They don't really want to hear different than what they want. So this large billion-dollar corporation out of India said, we want your manufacturing technology services business. And I remember telling the CEO of that company, but we got this cool MarTech thing that we're doing. He said, sounds good, don't care. We want this part of the business. And I was like, okay, so you're gonna pay us millions of dollars for this part of the business, and then we can carve out the piece of the business you don't want, and do what we want with it. He said, yeah, I want the manufacturing part of the business. So we did a transaction, spun out the MarTech part of the business that was partnered with Adobe, and we grew that and sold it in 3 years to private equity. And so what we did as a small team, what I did as an emerging entrepreneur, is I took an opportunity and I scaled it, and then here's some of the things that we learned along the way that I'm gonna share with you in terms of learning. Number one, your background does not dictate your dream level. So where you are today is a foundation for who you want to become, but a lot of us think about our limitations first, not our capabilities first. So I was very fortunate that I was a capabilities first thinker, which means if I knew something fantastic, but learning something new was within my skill set because the knowledge and the effort and the education is there, because there's plenty of people that are willing to teach you, grow you, and share with you if you're willing to ask, if you're willing to follow up. And so when I was in the technology space and did some time there, exited a few companies there, and then I was kind of thinking, what do I want to do next? And so I was like, all right, digital marketing, this was years ago, I'm going to date myself, but I said, this digital marketing stuff's cool, this interweb and internet. I said, there's probably some money in this, right? And I didn't know a whole lot about marketing, right? But I had a little extra money, and I invested in a small marketing firm called WalkWest. You can go to walkwest.com, still growing and doing well today, and I'm the board chair of this firm. But when I invested in WalkWest, it was maybe $300,000 in revenue, 2 employees. And we grew that business to be an Inc. 5000 growing company 3 years in a row. And now it is a multi-million-dollar company with corporations that trust us with their marketing, branding, and spend along the way. I tell you that to say, wait a minute, Don, you were in technology. Then you went into marketing. Well, I worked in the marketing space and grew a company for a few years. And then in the 2000s is when we pivoted to organizational change and focused on DEI. So Don, how are you skilled to do all of these different things? The cheat code I'm trying to explain to you is curiosity backed up by knowledge attainment and applied learning. You can do things that you enjoy that are monetarily beneficial if you're willing to do the education, the work, and the homework. So don't let your current state or even your future state keep you from dreaming big, trying new things, and learning. I am a continuous high-octane learner. I learn from most people I come in contact with. Some things it's what to do, some things it's what not to do, and some things is how I'm inspired. And so what I want to do today is give you that hope, that push, that inspiration, right? That don't let your dreams be contained by someone else's box. You create your own box or live without one. And I think that's really, really important in terms of a mental model, in terms of how to think about your career and what you're trying to do. In addition to some of the businesses I just talked about, and I'll kind of wind into what I want to share with you today. I'm on the board of trustees for ECU Health, which is a $2 billion healthcare system in Eastern North Carolina. I sit on the board of a financial institution and probably 5 to 7 different startups. I say that to say this specifically. I see a lot of businesses, how they work, what they do, what works and what doesn't work, right? And so my knowledge power is really having the access to a lot of different really, really smart people. I'm really focused a lot on AI these days, not because that's my knowledge and expertise, but here's the thing I want to tell you, and keep up with me. Connect on LinkedIn. In a year or two, you'll see Donald Thompson as this AI guru. You're meeting me when I don't really know what it is except ChatGPT and trying to answer questions. What I'm telling you is I'm in the study phase because I'm seeing how critical it is in the future. I'm using it every day in any of my businesses. I'm going to courses and training on it. I have coffee once a week with somebody that is scary smart in this space. And so I'm in that learning mode. And so in 6 months, I'm working on a book about it, not because I have the knowledge, but guess what I can do if I want to write a book about it? I can talk to people who are, I can do research, and I can compile that research into my expertise. What I'm trying to tell you is don't be afraid of the future, create the future that you want. What I just talked about in that last segment, that last 2 or 3 minutes, is having a growth mindset. And a growth mindset is really difficult sometimes when a lot of media, when a lot of people are trying to define who you are and what you can or cannot do. And I'm here to tell you, don't listen to it. What I did early on in my career was super helpful is I listened to people that cared about me. And then I took it one step further. I listened to people that cared about me in the areas they were experts. It's a very important distinction because there's plenty of people that care about you that are giving you advice in areas they're not experts in. There's plenty of people that care about you that are giving you advice in areas that they've not experienced, whether or not they're an expert or not. You can learn from somebody's missteps, right? They don't have to have it all figured out. They can just talk to you about things that they struggled with, need to overcome, what they learned, who they talked to, right? So here's the number one item. So we're going to talk about 5 pillars, right, as we talked tonight, right? Number 1 is focus on the learning and not just the results. One of the reasons that we do that, when you're in school and you're going through and you're talking with your professors, look, you need to get a good grade. I'm not telling you that it's okay, that failure is okay. Sometimes it's just not, right? Because you got to pay to take a class again, you're in school longer. Like, I'm not here to tell you that. But I am here to tell you that learning and your ability to learn is a prerequisite to amazing success. Because technology, life, business is changing so rapidly that many of the things you're learning today are not going to be applied in the same way in a year, 2 years, 3 years. So you have to think about the skills that you're learning, but equally as important, the pace of your learning, your ability to apply learning quickly, your ability to develop the critical thinking and confidence, right, to learn from people that are outside of your core space, but take that mental leap, that breaking through the fear to walk up to somebody that you don't know and ask them for a cup of coffee because they were the expert in the room. I don't know how many times people have helped me that I met at a conference or a convention and chatted with them. And here's a cheat code. Smart, successful people love talking about how smart and successful they are. Let me give you a tip. Y'all aren't paying me loads of money today, right? Somebody said, Don, we really think a lot of you, really. We would like you to come talk to our students, really. We'll do it whenever your schedule allows it. Oh, no problem. I would love to. What do you want me to talk about? Anything you like, just share your brilliance. Okay. Right? And so now, do I speak for free all the time? For educational organizations, really a lot. Typically, it's about 10 grand. So just so we're like put in level set what's going on here. But the reality is, if you ask somebody that you know in your network, even loosely, for 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, you ask a question on LinkedIn, you'll be surprised at how many yeses you get. Let me give you another example, because this is really important, because all of us, friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, have networks that we don't access because we have some kind of mental block to whether or not that person would be willing to help us or not. So there's a friend of a friend that called me up and said, Don, you used to be in technology sales. My son-in-law has a technology background and wants to get into technology sales. So I had coffee with him, looked at his resume, said, we're gonna have to rework this. This isn't amazing, right? I was like, you're smart enough to get computer science degree, all of these different things, but you must have missed the resume program because this isn't great. But the Lego pieces you have within your resume are great, right? So we reworked the resume. And then I said, you're wanting to get in technology sales. Here's what I think I can do. I'm not the best person to help you. I've been out of that space a little bit. But I put him with a recruiter that all day, every day, works on placing sales and marketing professionals in technology companies. He reviewed the better resume, and now they're getting a game plan to go to market with this individual. So I was not the answer. I was one step to what could potentially be the answer. But I was willing to do that because most people that have succeeded in any way are humble enough to realize they didn't do it on their own, and somebody said yes to a cup of coffee with them when they had nothing to offer back either, right? And so it's an important thing to help you all kind of break through that mental model. So focus on the learning, how fast we learn and how fast we learn to use our network. In anything that I face, I try, don't get this right all the time, to look at both the challenge and the opportunity. You can be too optimistic that you don't look at the risks and the scenarios of things that you're facing, and you don't get ready enough. You can let the glossy future take over. You need both of those things, the challenge and the opportunity for you to fully think around the problems. I'm going to give you a book recommendation. I did a training for about 30 HR professionals at a global HR retailer. If I dropped the name, you would know who they are. And we talked about a book called Six Thinking Hats. And it's by Edward DeBona. And if you go online and research me, I have a podcast on it, it'll give you that. And if you send me a quick email, I have some PowerPoints and different things I'll share with you. Here's the thing about this book, is it helps you critically think fast. And I'm gonna give you a 4 to 5 minute primer on this because I think it's that important. And this is a little off script, which I tend to do. The first hat is a white hat, facts. Second hat is black hat, caution, risk. Yellow hat, good things that could happen. Green hat, possibilities, innovation. Blue hat, your project management, your detail. Red hat, how do you feel about a situation, your intuition, your feelings. If you think through these scenarios, you can become a more critical thinker because you step outside of your typical way that you respond to new information. Most of us have a dominant hat. Typically, I am very optimistic. The brighter future, what's the gain? How are we gonna build? How are we gonna grow? I had to learn critically to think about the risk areas. I had to learn critically to think about the process of execution. I had to learn how to blend the facts, right, with the risk, with the upside. We talk a lot about, people do, about find a mentor who's gonna sponsor you in an organization. Well, what do we do when we don't have anybody to rely on, but we need to think critically about something? I use the 6 thinking hats. And it's something that really helps. It's an easy read, and if you don't even wanna read the book, just literally go online, type it in, and there's PDFs that can talk about it in under 7 minutes that'll help you beyond comprehension. Number 3, communication and curiosity. One of the things that I see emerging professionals do that I wish they wouldn't. All right, and I wanna share this. When you're in a room in a business setting, and maybe you feel the need to demonstrate that you're good enough, that you're worthy, that you're smart enough to be there. A lot of times what people do is they start making statements to validate their presence versus asking questions to understand their role in the moment. And it's a super big miss that people make. If you're in the room, you deserve to be there. I had someone ask me the other day that's worked with me for a while. And they said, Don, I want to ask you something. I said, okay, sure. I respect it about you, but it also kind of irritates me. I was like, okay. He said, you're right a lot. And it's kind of frustrating because we'll debate something, we'll go through and like, why does it seem like you always have the right answer? And I was like, I just started smiling because the answer is kind of awesome. I said, well, 1, thanks for asking the question. I said, 2, do you notice that I don't speak first in meetings? He said, yeah. Do you notice that we're surrounded by other really smart people? He said, yeah. Do you notice I kind of listen to what other smart people are saying for 10, 20, 15, 30 minutes before I kind of weigh in? He said, I think I'm kind of getting it. I said, well, do you think I make statements with strength just on my own knowledge? He said, no. He said, I really think I'm getting it. you're always talking about all the folks that you meet with. Do you remember me just talking about my journey on AI? Now, every single week for the last 7 weeks, I've met with an AI expert. By the time I speak in a meeting, I'm speaking with the knowledge I've gained, not the knowledge I have. So my percentage is higher. Because if I'm talking about something, I've done my homework, my research, and I've listened in the room. And if somebody has a great idea, instead of debating it, I try to extend on that good idea. If somebody has an idea that's ridiculous, which happens, or an idea that I disagree with, which happens, I don't say I disagree. I don't have enough knowledge at that point. I say, help me understand. I'd love to follow you. I'd love to be with you in the way you want to approach this, John and Jennifer. But I'm not following yet. Can you give me a little bit more information? Can you give me a little bit more of why you came to this, how you gather that data? 2 things happen when I do that. 1, the person shares something I missed, and I've not showed my cards yet in the meeting. Number 2, they talk enough to where I know why they're wrong. But either way, I stay in the curiosity moment longer than most people, which is very, very disciplined. Because our nature, think about school. Woo, I got an answer, right? From the early age, right? We want to be first. We want the right answer. And the higher you move in business, the less there's a right answer. The more there's a right direction that needs to be tested. Another cheat code is I don't debate with people what we can test. I ask them, how are we going to validate their thesis? How are we going to test this? How are we going to pilot this? How are we going to mitigate our risk? If you're right, I want to help you be right more in a cost-effective way. How are we going to take a percentage of our budget and test your thesis? Because of the way I ask questions, because of the way I think about the conversation, it gives me space to learn in the moment. And then by the time I speak, my thoughts are well thought, backed up by data, backed up by other smart people in the room, and my percentage is higher. Not I'm smarter. I'm a little bit more disciplined in the way I learn and the way I communicate, but it doesn't make me smarter. I just described a skill set that any of you can learn and adopt. The curiosity is what makes it work. Because I naturally want to know why people think the way they do. I want to understand. That's why I say, help me understand, instead of I disagree or have a different thought. Help me understand is a powerful phrase to where you can redirect a conversation or go more deeper in a conversation without creating animosity for the idea that someone else has. Because every interaction that I have with people, I want to create friends, I want to build my network, I want to grow my credibility. Because in business and in life, every day is interview day. You don't know who's watching, who's talking with you. I worked for Grant Willard, my mentor, for 10 years before we met in a pizza shop and he offered me the opportunity to be the president and CEO of the company and run a spin-out transition of one of the companies. What if the day he was considering his succession plan, I was lazy that day, I was whiny that day, I wasn't a team player that day? Every day is interview day. And so I always try to bring my best independent of the situation, independent of what's going on. Resiliency. We all have life and family and things that are going on in the world that affect us. There are things that stress us. There's things that brings us joy. Most people don't succeed by going on this straight line of success. Those that do, I wish you well. Congratulations. I'm envious. But that's not my testimony. Most of us have ups and downs, peaks and valleys, things that we're working on, working through, things that we have to overcome. And so your ability to bounce back is a critical element for your long-term success in business. I'll give this learning example for me, but also a learning example for some folks on my team. I have tremendously grown as a leader over the last 10 years, 15 years. Early in my career, as the son of a football coach, former athlete, I was a little bit too harsh. And I had a business coach share with me, hey, Don, you've succeeded, you made a little money. What are you leaving on the table? What growth could you have had if your businesses had better retention? If your leaders felt more empowered to share their full points of view with you? And as a very, very success-focused individual, that concerned me. I didn't want to win in spite of my weaknesses, right? And that's what I was doing. And so about 10 years ago, I went on a journey to be a more inclusive leader, a more empathetic leader without lowering the standards of success, right? Because I understood that standards and excellence, it's a very, very competitive arena out there in business. And so I started to work in different things. It doesn't mean I don't drop the ball still, but I'm way better. Let me give you an example. This was maybe 3 years ago. A team in one of my companies brought me a marketing proposal, and I did not love it. It wasn't good. Whatever not good is, it was below that. And I didn't react great to it. I mean, nothing that would get me in legal trouble or different things, but I was like, I think I said something to the effect, nah. It wasn't great. Now, here's the good thing. I built into my organization an environment where I wanted feedback. And so one of the members of the team, one of the more senior members of the team, caught me and said, Don, I was a little harsh, the reaction. I said, yeah. I said, it was a little harsh what y'all brought me. I mean, I was still mad. Because, I mean, when you pay people a lot of money, what do you expect? Like, effort. And what I saw was kind of thrown together. So I didn't love it, right? If you're paying people $100,000 a year, I expect $100,000 a year worth of effort. Now, if you miss the mark, that's different. But if I don't see the effort there, I'm like, what am I paying for? I could have got the same thing by doing nothing and kept the money. And I probably said something like that. But our environment is of candor. And so the team member said, Don, this was a little harsh for the crew. And I said, okay. I said, what would you like me to do when I get something that is not you all's best effort? Because I acknowledged, right, that I didn't push back that in that moment, I didn't behave the way I wanted to. And so I had to deal with that piece of it. But then I also had a legitimate question of, like, what do you want me to do, right, when we have that situation? So here's the opportunity for resilience, though, for my team. One of the team members, that statement I made, put them in a tailspin at work for 3 days. Now, you all may say, well, of course, right? There was a heavy aggression, and you didn't feel on his belonging, and you put him in a tough, and all that may be true. But it isn't the first or last time you're gonna have a bad meeting at work. So if you having a bad meeting at work puts you in a tailspin for 3 days, then you gotta decide if business is for you. Because you're gonna meet with customers, clients, executives, people that do not have the people skills that you would expect on a daily basis, that are not going to talk to you with kid gloves, that are gonna absolutely expect you deliver on what you pitched them with your MBA, your resume, your pedigree, and all those things. There is a value exchange in corporations. And when you don't meet that value exchange, someone on the other end of it is probably going to get a little upset. And so what we did was we talked about the behavior elements that my team wanted to see different in me, which I acknowledged. I am not proud of how I handled that moment, but my feelings were genuine and validated. Like, I wasn't wrong, I was wrong in how I communicated it, right? And so we talked through that, and that was a learning opportunity for my team that, wait a minute, if we let Don know like something was a little off balance, he's not gonna continue to behave in that manner. He's gonna reflect, talk to us about it, and figure out how we move on forward together. So that was an opportunity for me to demonstrate leadership even in a moment where I dropped the ball in leadership, if that makes sense, right? But I also had to have a real conversation with our emerging team members to say, my behavior was not so egregious that you were gonna win a multimillion-dollar lawsuit, this, that, and the other. I didn't do anything. It was a bad meeting, which happens all the time. You can't lose that kind of time with me or anyone else because you had a bad meeting. So here's what I recommend you do. When you're listening to people that are coming across in a tone you don't get, most people's natural inclination is to shut down. That's fine. If that works for you, I get it. It's not how you grow and progress. My advice to you, and it doesn't have to be in the moment, it can be after the moment. Sometimes you need to move out of a situation that's uncomfortable, get to the next day, get to the next thing. But at some point, you've got to address that leader and say, the meeting went a little off the rails. Could we talk about the things that I can do to address your concerns about the work product that you saw? Now, all of a sudden, you're next leveling the conversation, you're next leveling the way you think, your mental mindset, how you approach situations. You're now on offense, you're not acting like a victim, you're figuring out how to be victorious in a situation. You still may want to quit, you still may not want to work for that person anymore. All those are reasonable reactions, and that's fine. I'm talking about how we behave in situations that make us uncomfortable. I'll give another example of me in my career. I did right, but it was uncomfortable. I was early in my career, and I was sitting in, I've been the only one. I went for 15 years in the software business, never selling to somebody that looked like me. Not 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, 5, 15 years. I was at a client site, I sat across the table with somebody who looked like me. I had to go to the bathroom and compose myself. I almost lost it. I couldn't, and I got myself together and we went through the meeting and different things, but I want you to think about 15 years, never, in high-level technology sales, never selling to somebody who looks like you. So I'm in a meeting in Boston. Big conference room, billion-dollar corporation, glass everywhere, big yellow chair, big leather chairs, the whole, whatever you see on TV, that's the room that I was in, right? So we're in this room and we're negotiating this multi-million-dollar, multi-year contract with suppliers in Germany, with suppliers in the US, and we're doing this joint venture deal. And one of the gentlemen in the meeting, and I'm the only person of color in this meeting, one of the gentlemen in the meeting said, I feel like you all are being Indian givers. I just paused for 10 seconds. Do you understand how uncomfortable that is? I just paused for 10 seconds. And the one thing I learned that helped me in this moment is I learned a little trick when I hear something I don't like, that makes me mad, that makes me uncomfortable, is I give myself a 15-second rule. Don, shut up. You got bills, you got a mortgage. Don't say nothing for 15 seconds. Because in 15 seconds, you can at least figure out what you're supposed to say, what you want to say, and at least do it on purpose. Because there was a whole lot that was coming out. And so after 15 seconds, I was like, I can't let this shit go. I just was like, I can't. I thought about it, I was like, man, I guess we're about to have a moment. Right? And everybody's sitting, everybody's suited. This is high-flying meeting. And I looked at the gentleman and I said, I'm not a big history buff, but I don't remember it as Indian giver. I mean, if we're going to be actually correct, it's like white man giver. And I mean silence. I had the floor now. No one was, silence. And then the gentleman that said it said these words. He said, Don, until you just said that out loud, I had no idea how that would land. Can we talk about this offline and kind of get back into the meeting? And I apologize. And I said, absolutely. We finished the meeting. We did the thing that we did. It maybe took 2 or 3 minutes to kind of just get back into the vibe of the meeting. And me and this gentleman took a walk around the complex. And he explained his background, where he was from, how he grew up. He said, look, nothing about what I said was correct. But I didn't even know how that landed until what you just did. I just never even thought about it. And now I heard it out loud of how could I say that? How could I think that way, X, Y, Z? And why would I say that in that moment? And I said, listen, I'm not your judge. I just couldn't let that go. Because it's the type of thing I hear all the time, and the level in the room, I had to take a risk no matter in my career that I just didn't feel like that was good, appropriate, or something that should go on. And we just had that conversation. And me and that person are friends to this day. When people behave in a manner that's counter to your morals or values, I'm not their judge, but I had to make a decision if I was going to say something in that moment, if I was going to say something to HR later, if I was going to pull the person aside. There's lots of different ways to handle those situations So give yourself the 15 seconds or the 30 seconds. But every time I hear something bananas in a meeting, I don't react to it. I pick where I'm going to interject and what that moment means to me, and I think through the ramifications of my next step. But the reason that I share that story is really important, because a lot of the world is teaching us to be upset with each other, mad at each other about all sorts of things. I don't take any person's first thing that I don't like to create the way I view that person long term. Somebody could have a bad day. It could be something totally different than that. All kinds of stuff. What I try to do with people is look through the lens of goodness to the thing that I don't like. And what that does is it makes me approach them in a way that's humble, humility, and helpful, but firm and gracious, right? And so you're gonna experience all kinds of things in your career, but you gotta be able to bounce back. In that moment, I bounced back and we went back to the meeting. In that moment, I bounced back and I still had a great conversation with that individual. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but resiliency, right, is really, really important in so many ways when you have a business. Your network is your net worth. I want you all to just I'm gonna do a quick exercise, and it'll take just a minute. Just write down the top 5 most successful people that you know, in whatever way you view success. I don't want to debate what that means. It could be in business, it could be somebody that is healthy, it could be somebody that has a great marriage, it could be somebody in your church or religious organization that that's a detail. So whatever success means to you, write down the top 5 people in your world that you know that are the most successful people that you know. And just jot their names real quick, and then I'll share what we'll do with it. And then while you're finishing, I'll chat. Then the next thing you want to do with these 5 is ask yourself a simple question. When was the last time you asked them for a cup of coffee, for advice, or for help? If you're pleased with that answer, fantastic. If you're not, I highly recommend that 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 of those successful people that you know, that you reach out to them, that you connect with them. What I've found is that when you're in business, your network is a part of your cheat code. How many people have heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know? It's kind of right. The secret is who knows you, what you do, and the value you can deliver. So it's an extension of your value is who you know. And so what you want to do as you're building your education, you want to build behavioral habits that will accentuate the hard work you're doing in school, at work, which is building that powerful network. Now, how do you do it? Chamber events are great. Events like this are great, right? If you need something from me, we're a part of one of each other's network now. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me your resume. If you look at my background and there's somebody that's a connection of mine that we both know, feel free to ask me. I'll probably say something like this. Let's have a 5-10 minute call. I don't just forward resumes of people I don't know. Just like the gentleman that called me, we had a cup of coffee. Once I felt comfortable with him, I said, you know what? You'll represent my brand, my network, my recommendation, fine. Whether or not you're the right fit or not, you are the type of person that I would want in my network. I'm happy to share a name or two with you, right? But your network allows you to accelerate because you don't know how to move in an area where you don't have that experience, but somebody that does is going to tell you the way to shape your resume, who to talk to. In fact, one of the folks that this young gentleman, the companies they're he's applying to, the CEO was on my podcast. So I'm going to have him send the resume to the recruiter, and then I'm going to send the resume to the CEO. I can't get him a job, but I can help get him an audience. That's the cheat code. And don't feel bad for a second to use everything in your network to try to figure out how to get in the right spot in line. Because I think that is super, super important. Next thing. So one of the things that's super important is having a game plan for what you want to do and be that you can make sure you're on the right track or not for your goals, right? A lot of times, and it doesn't have to be overly complicated, right? What kind of industry do you want to be in? What kind of job do you want to have? What kind of money do you want to make? When do you want to make it? Here's the things with goals. And I use this simple formula. What do you want? When do you want it? What are you willing to give up to get it? And who can help you get what you want? And when you understand those things, again, what do you want? When do you want it? What are you willing to do to get it? Who do you know that can help you get it? And it just frames your thinking about the things that you're going after and puts that into your mental model. So career navigation and emerging leaders. We talked about meeting cadence and how to be stronger in your presence in meetings. And we talked about that in some of the cheat codes I use. The other cheat code that I use early on in my career is I've been reading the Harvard Business Review every month for 20 years. I don't know if it's the best magazine. I remember walking into a Barnes & Noble's, which people don't do as much anymore, but I remember walking into a Barnes & Noble's 20 plus years ago and looking at this magazine and going, who do these people think they are, charging $16.95 for a magazine, right? I just couldn't believe it. Like I just couldn't believe it. And so I bought one. I was like, I gotta see, like, if you're bold enough to, like, $16 for a magazine. Well-researched, trends are really, really on point. And what it taught me to do, and this is important, I wanted to read the things that the people I was selling to at the highest levels in business was reading. I wanted to be reading the same things as executives I wanted to be able to communicate with were reading. I didn't get or understand every article. Everyone wasn't for me, but the research rigor gave me a speed course in the MBA thinking that I did not have, but I needed in terms of how to build out a talk track for business leaders across industries. And because it's built in a similar case study manner, the way that they teach in many MBA schools, right? It was able to give me good real world primers that I could learn from and then apply, right? And so whether it's that or other things, find a source of insight that you can consistently learn from that starts to give you that edge. The next thing that I did, and this is this is a cool one. Let's say you have a 30-minute meeting. Let's say you have a 45-minute meeting with somebody that you value their expertise, right? One of the things I did for many years is I would ask that leader, we have 45 minutes on the calendar, we have 30 minutes on the calendar. If we can get through the meeting content in 25 minutes, can I have the last 5 minutes to just ask you a question about my personal and professional growth? I've never had a leader say no to that. Never. And what would happen is, number one, I signaled in the organization I was working that I want to go next level and I want to be taught and mentored how. Two, it made me prepare for meetings better. So I naturally sent better pre-reads. I naturally covered the most important things first because I wanted that 5 minutes for my personal development. So I covered the things and the reason that we were having the meeting. And then I became known. And I did this with people inside the companies I was working with and business leaders and executives I was selling to and I was working with. And so I developed a handful of really close relationships over the years. My reading list came from some of the top performers in a lot of different industries. And it's a simple thing that'll allow you to stand out second to none. Do you need to do it every time, every meeting? No. But where it makes sense to you, it meant a lot to me, and it really helped me grow in terms of my knowledge base, right? Next cheat code. We talked about this, but I want to reiterate it. Before you make a statement of your point of view, make sure you have the learning ammunition from everyone else in the room or the majority of the room, because it'll set you up for a higher quality feedback when it's your moment to participate. The second thing it'll do is it'll teach you, and I had to learn this habit because I wanted to talk first, I had ideas and all this stuff. It'll also teach you conversational discipline. Because many of us have in that nature that if we hear something, we have an approach, we want to share it. Like we want to participate. We're passionate about the component. And then the other thing that I would encourage you to do, and this is diversity, equity, inclusion in action. We all know that some of us are extroverts or introverts or different things. Just because someone's quiet in the meeting doesn't mean they don't have something powerful to share. And so one of the things that I learned to do as a business leader on my rise, but I try to do this as CEO, if someone is quiet in a meeting, I'll pause the folks that are kind of dominating the room, and I'll say, Gloria, we have a few minutes. You haven't really spoken up in the meeting, but I want to give you space to add to the dialogue if there's something you'd like to add or interject. Sometimes that person will take that space, and sometimes that person will be like, I thank you very much, but I'm good. I think it's been a great discussion, but I really appreciate it. Either way, I'm creating inclusion in the moment because all of us have different perspectives, but we also have different personalities. And some people need to be invited in a little bit, need that professional nudge, right, to feel comfortable participating, right? And being an introvert, being a little quiet, being a little shy, doesn't mean you're not scary smart. And as an entrepreneur and a business leader, I don't want to leave any ideas on the table, right? I want that knowledge so that I can make the best decisions. The last thing is this. It's how do you deal with your relationship with work? And I was, I talked to a lot of folks. I'm doing some coaching work with the senior VP of people operations for a tech startup. And they're a private equity-backed tech startup that have about 100 people and growing. So they're buying companies. They're just doing a lot of different things. So I'm talking with this business leader in a coaching capacity and talking about how to relate I'll tell you the phrase that she used. She said, Don, how do I manage when there's so much ego in the room? Right? I was like, great question. But that's one of the things that she's dealing with, right? Because one, as a woman leader, right, there's some biases in the world. Two, right, there are very few female leaders, let alone executives in the company, right? And then three, a lot of times when you're in a support function, right, you don't have as much juice in the organization as somebody that's selling, somebody that's delivering the technology. And so my guidance, which I will share with you all, is don't make the meeting the key point of interaction with the other stakeholders in the room. Make sure you do your pre-meeting work to check, to gain ideas from other participants, and then you will naturally feel more in control and empowered because you actually know what people are thinking that aren't even saying anything because you've talked to a few of them before the meeting. What I talked to her about is pre-meeting prep, owning the preparation in the moment. And I said, the other thing that will happen is that because they've talked to you before, they will try to leverage you in the meeting to expand their point of view. And what she started to see after this quick coaching is some of these folks now saw her. Amy, what do you think? Hey, we haven't heard from Amy. Amy, we need you to weigh in on this. Because Amy did the pre-work and managed some of those egos, right? And I get it. Why should I have to do that? I don't want to do that, but hey, that's fine. If that's a conversation we want to have, then we can have that conversation. When I coach people how to win in the environment that they're in. And our environment has some bias, some inequity, and some things that don't shape us all the same in terms of how we get to operate in a corporation. And that means we have to acknowledge those things while we're trying to change those things. I believe in change, I work in change, I'm fighting for that change, okay? But it isn't happening as fast as we're going into the workforce and the things we have to do tomorrow. So you have to know how to deal with today while you create the credibility, the power, the influence to change tomorrow. And so that's one of the things that I taught this business leader. And so Stephanie, Lisa, team, thank you all for having me. I know I've gone on a little bit, but it's because I'm excited and very, very appreciative of you all having me, and I wanted to give you the best that I had. So I'll close it out there. Thank you for joining us on High-Octane Leadership with Donald Thompson. Today's episode is a step in our collective journey towards leadership excellence. Remember, every story we share and every insight we gain is a piece in the puzzle of our leadership journey. For more insight and detail, hit the subscribe button so that we can stay connected. For deeper information and more episodes, go to donaldthompson.com. Continue to lead with vision and purpose, and until we meet again, embrace your role as a high-octane leader in the ever-evolving world of business.